All right, welcome to the newest edition of 42 Stories Anthology Presents. Today we have one of our special guest judges from the sports chapter. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you.
Yeah, here's one of the cover drafts. I'd like for you to be one of the first to see it. What's your impression?
My impression is that 42 stands out and there's huge variety here. And I've never heard of Mackenzie Publishing. That would be something I might Google.
Oh,
Um, and I like all of the things that are included here on the back cover.
oh, good.
Um, and I know it's got to be bigger in real life and easier to read, and
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
eyes are my eyes. Um, but I love the repetition of 42. I'm seeing more of it all over the place. So this is really cool.
Yeah, the artist had used 42 images on the front, 42 on the back. Unfortunately, the front cover wording is going to change a little just so we can fit some more things. But the
Okay.
back's going to stay that way. So that's a bright side. Yeah, and Mackenzie is Kathy Mackenzie. She's a publisher I've known for a while, and she originally had just published one of my short stories, and then we started chatting because she liked the story and we became friends over time. And she also helped with the anthology a lot. And I said, what do you think of publishing the book? And she liked the idea. So,
Great.
yeah. But I want to know more about you. So here is the introduction with you. Welcome. This is also our logo, by the way. Um,
Nice.
and so that's going to probably be on the cover as well.
Okay.
But as I mentioned, you were the special guest judge for the sports category. Why was it that chapter?
Well, I saw an ad that you were looking for a judge
Hmm.
and I applied and you picked me. And I didn't know that it was going to be sports. True confessions, I'm not good at sports. Coordination has never been my strong point,
Oh,
but that brought I was able to bring some perspective. I wanted to pick pieces that I thought would resonate with sports people as well as human beings. And I thought the combination and having someone who isn't a sports person might work really well. And I hope you feel that that's what happened.
yeah, the stories you picked were good decisions. I agreed with your choices, and I
Good.
think the writers were definitely happy. So no
I would
worries.
imagine, yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and tell everyone your biography.
Okay.
Let me know if I make any mistakes. I'm so used to
Okay.
Japanese. I'll pop back on my glasses. Let's see. So you've been a writer and an editor for quite some time, and you
Yes.
own Writer Advice at writeradvice.com. And you have three award-winning books, Talent, Disrupted, and a memoir titled Never Too Late from Wannabe to Wife at 62. Your flash fiction is published in Flashquake, Nebo, Cabinet and Heed, Murmur of Words, 100 Word Stories, Ariel's Dream, and Writing in a Woman's Voice, and 50 Give or Take. And you've been a book reviewer and teacher at Circle Story Network. Sorry, a
That's the
Story
Story
Circle
Circle
Network.
Network.
Yeah, I did a little dyslexia there. Story
That's
Circle Network.
okay.
Yeah, but it's interesting not being dyslexic and having dyslexic issues. Can imagine for the people with the problems.
I
Uh,
used to teach in adult literacy, and I wished I could crawl into their brains and see the world through their eyes.
well, in my case, it's just I'm used to reading Japanese and I get it mixed up. And kanji and English are so different. Yeah. And seeing through the eyes of people who struggle has got to be, that's a story in itself. By the way,
Yeah.
where are you located?
I'm east of Berkeley, west of the San Joaquin Valley, at the foot of Mount Diablo, in a town called Danville.
Okay. Yeah. My only experience at California was going to Disney during the 2002 flood. But
I first went to Disneyland in 1957,
oh, okay.
probably before you were alive.
Yeah, I was born in 83.
Yeah, way before you were alive.
My mom was born in 55. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I could be your mom. That makes sense. At least I'm not your grandmother.
Oh, yeah. So, let's see. I want to know about your writing space. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, my writing space is my laptop. I
Hmm.
have an office and I often sit at the desk there, but sometimes the height is not right for my arms and my shoulders. And then I will move to where I am right now. I'm under a fan in the living room and I have what is basically a TV tray and it's a bit lower. And if I'm going to be writing faster, this is physically better. Other writing spaces include Starbucks, occasionally Pete's, the local library, other libraries, and I have been known to write in the passenger seat of my car.
Well, it's a good thing it's the passenger seat, not the driver's seat.
Yeah, I can read in the driver's seat, but I cannot open up the laptop and write in the driver's seat. That is a bit much.
Yeah. Uh, that's a good thing. And it's great to have variety. You mentioned a
Yeah,
lot of different places you write, and that must get your writer brain kicking.
it
Um,
does. Variety helps. Now this is a gorgeous writing space that you are showing here. Mine, of course, is much smaller.
oh, are you talking about my background?
Yeah, your background here.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's actually my kitchen slash entertainment room slash writer room, dining room, all of it
Wow,
in one. Uh,
it's very nice looking.
thank you. I'd like to know about your writer's circle, if that's okay. Are you a part of any?
Yes, I'm part of, well, there's kind of a writer's circle in conjunction with writer advice, and I have thought about putting a real one together through there. But right now I run we call it a writing extravaganza for people who are in the e-circles groups at Story Circle Network. So this is all women. The Story Circle Network comes out of Texas, and the administrator is Carol Zeal. I provide the plans and the structure each month. We meet once a month. We meet on Zoom, and we've gotten quite close and quite supportive. I also have a group that I formed out of the California Writers Club, people who check in on Tuesday nights. We used to meet in person, first at my house, then at Ann Steiner's house, and then we moved to Zoom when the pandemic came up. And we have not left Zoom for a variety of reasons, having to do with maturity and health. And we check in at 7, we state what we plan to do. And then we come back at 8:55 and say what we did.
Hmm.
And there's usually a discrepancy, and sometimes people go down the rabbit hole, and sometimes people just change their minds. But those of us who've been in the group for a while are all either published or definitely, I'm thinking of one particular person definitely moving toward publishing. Um, I edited one of the books for a man who I'm really glad he got the chance to write the story before he had some problems with memory and dementia take over. Um, and his wife gets him on the Zoom every week, and she says he loves checking in with us.
Well, that's great
Retired
because
attorney, really, he was a brilliant man, and he's still in there somewhere.
yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is it sounds like he's still in there a little bit because he's
He
checking in
is,
sometimes. It's
yeah.
great.
Yeah, he has trouble articulating what he's working on, but I know he is working, trying to write. So that's good.
Oh, yeah, that's great. And it also sounds like you have a lot to do, and it's yeah, another way to keep your writer creativity going.
Yeah, and
So
it's good to have people to check in with.
hmm. Yeah. Why do you say that?
Because writing is a very lonely business.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I love my husband dearly, but our brains work differently.
Hmm.
And being able to check in with writers, particularly women writers, gives me the perspective I need. And I shouldn't say just women writers because we do have men in the group that came out of California Writers Club. Um, it's good to have people to bounce ideas off of,
Hmm.
and one idea can lead to another. And it helps to keep me motivated and make me feel less like I'm in a vacuum. And Story Circle Network certainly encourages me to submit writing,
Hmm.
which matters.
Okay, so your story circle network. It's good to have a network. Does anything else inspire you, such as listening to music or watching TV while writing or not?
Well,
Hmm.
as long as you put it that way, yes, some music does inspire me, but not while I'm writing.
Oh, okay.
Need to have quiet while I'm writing. Sometimes I think it's the era I was up in. Um, but I'm not a headphones person while I'm writing. I'll get distracted. I'll lose track. I'll put in words that don't belong there, that are coming out of the song or whatever. Um, I have been known to kick back and close my eyes. Um, and I will either have on some kind of soft music, or I will listen to the news. And I'm not so much listening to the news content as the voices reporting.
Hmm.
Um, it's like they're telling a story, and I go between truth is stranger than fiction, and you can't make this stuff up. Um, but that's really good. I also will do that with reruns of shows from a long time ago, and they do trigger a lot of memories. And a good part of my journaling deals with the past and what I know now. So that's useful.
That says a lot about your narrative and how you get kind of a voice down and you work on your characters, how you listen to others. And yeah, it speaks a lot. I've looked through your writing and noticed that you have a knack for character voice and that kind and your narrative. So
Well, yeah,
hmm.
Disrupted and Talent
Yeah.
both take place in a high school, and I taught high school drama and English
Mm.
back in the 70s and 80s in a previous life. And then I taught it in college too. And the voices of those kids still live on in my head.
Mm.
And yeah, they're pretty authentic. I know how they think and what they want and what they need.
Mm.
Like recognition. Recognition is so important when you're a teenager.
Mm. Yeah, but eventually when they get older, people get more humble. Yeah, for the most part.
For the most part.
Um, So I want to ask you about something else. You mentioned there's a lot of writing and creativity going on, but
Mhm.
how do you get into focusing your writing on editing?
How do I focus my writing on editing?
Oh, excuse me. Let me change it a bit. I think that I want to ask you actually about writer's block. I'll get to editing later.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Um, writers writer's block comes up for me when I'm tired
Mm.
or when I'm in pain. And I hope most writers don't have a lot of physical pain, and that's a whole separate issue. But if I get stuck, I there are several things I can do to get going in the morning. I often set a timer for 10 minutes and start journaling, and I can write about anything. And also add to my list of what I'm going to do that day. And then hopefully I will say when the 10-minute buzzer rings, I set it for another 10 minutes because 20 minutes is usually pretty good for
Hmm.
journaling. And that gets me going and gets me focused. And then if I'm writing and I just get stuck and I can't come up with the words, I will stand up, I will walk to the refrigerator. Usually about the time I put my hand on the handle of the refrigerator, something goes off in my brain and I know what to do. And on a good day, I will go back and do it without even opening the refrigerator. On a not so good day, I might take a snack with me or grab a bottle of water or whatever. But the act of physically moving helps me a lot. And it's my movement has become more limited, quite a bit more limited in the last few months. And still standing up and moving gets the brain going.
Hmm.
I think there have probably been studies on that.
Yeah.
So it works for me. But then you got to go back and you got to write down what you just came up with.
Hmm.
So that's how I cope with writer's block.
Yeah. Well, actually, just historically, there's people who have been famous who were known to take walks.
Oh
Beethoven,
yeah,
for example, did that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a walking companion. His name is Mateo McPuppers, and he's a very good dog, unless there's another dog that he's got to bark at and lunge toward. Uh, he's a very good dog. He's lying here right now listening to me talk to you.
Yeah. Oh, well, it sounds like a good dog, not a single bark. But even if dogs bark, I think they're just talking. And a lot of people don't
Oh
even
yeah,
believe
they're
that.
talking, and he's got to, especially if, a Great Dane comes along, he's a Maltese. He's
Oh,
got to show them that he's present and fierce and all of that stuff. It's his
and
MO.
then Great Danes are, but then the Great Danes are so calm and relaxed.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to go on to your groove and editing. For editing, what do you so they're kind of it's a three-part question. Do you have your
Okay.
friends read your work, or do you have a professional editor? Do you do it yourself?
Yes. It depends on the work.
Okay.
Um, I have been known to read my work aloud to myself and see, I can hear in my voice when I'm tripping up, and that tells me there's a problem with flow. I have been known to have my husband read things or read things to me. He's a different kind of a reader than I am. His brain works differently than mine. Um, Sometimes it is very enlightening, and I always realize I've asked for his help. Sometimes the help is more helpful than other times. Um, I have hired professional editors who will catch stuff that I've looked at a million times and don't see the problems with. Um, I am not a part of a critique group. I've not had a good history with critique groups, and I'm thinking of starting a critique group where I'm the leader and we set some rules. And I will listen quietly to what they have to say. Um, I want people who are not beginners to critique my work
Hmm.
for the most part. I know you can learn something from everybody. And sometimes I'll ask people who really don't know much about writing for impressions. But I don't want, this goes back a long ways, and I know it. I got really badly bothered by someone. She told me to take two sentences and combine them so that they became a comma splice. And
Oh,
I asked her why she wanted me to do that. And she said, I don't know, I was just trying to help. And I thought, what am I doing in this group?
Mm.
And that has always kind of stuck with me. So I am selective. Um, but yeah, you need feedback. Absolutely, you need feedback, and I can't always do it myself. And Mateo's a wonderful dog, but he does not speak English. So
Yeah, so
yeah, so
can't critique. Yeah.
he cannot critique for me. Um, uh, it's worth the money to pay for someone whose judgment you trust, who writes in a genre that you identify with,
Mm.
and who wants to edit. So I recommend that.
Yeah, and finding the right person is a process. That's why I'm glad there's online places that help. And speaking of online places, you actually have a place for writers. It's writeradvice.com, and then you go like
Mhm.
category writer dash advice. So I
There's no
wanted to,
dash in it.
it's not
It's
dash? Okay.
no, right.
Hmm.
WRITEADVICE.com.
Oh,
Uh,
but I mean the category, so that they could get to your advice. I
oh,
think,
you can get my advice by going to writeradvice.com.
okay,
And then you click go to the manuscript consultation and editing page.
okay.
You can find that along the top. Just click on it, take a look at what we offer and the comments of people I've worked with.
Mm,
And there are a lot of comments listed there. And then go back to the home page, send me an email telling me what your situation is, and I will get back to you. And I am always happy to work with people. I think my fees are pretty reasonable. I know my fees are pretty reasonable. But a worker is worthy of her hire.
yeah.
So I don't give it away anymore.
Well, my grandfather did something similar. He had a grocery store in Corpus Christi. That was his old business before HEB came and took over. And he would always say that he bought products on quality, never quantity.
Oh,
Uh,
I love it.
yeah,
Do you happen to know the name of the grocery store?
it was so long ago. I wrote it down somewhere, and I'll send you an email later if I ever find
Okay, if
it.
you ever find it, I want to ask my husband about it.
Actually, my uncle's gonna know the name, so I could just send him a text later and ask.
That would be terrific.
Because yeah, that was his dad.
Small world.
Yeah. Yeah, because you knew Corpus, right, right.
Yeah.
So I'd like to talk with you about outlining. You mentioned how you have advice. So could you tell me about organizing your writing process? How does that work in your life?
Okay. I do too many things to do all of them on any given day.
Hmm.
So what I do is I keep an ongoing list. And in one color, I put what I need to do. And then I have the joy of graying things out. I'm moving the phone because messages are coming in. I have the joy of graying things out when I'm done with them, or graying part of it out if I'm partially done with it. And that shows me my progress. Um, in terms of organizing my writing, I am a pantser more than a plotter. Um, if I do plot something out, I know I'm going to change it. And plotting is a good idea, but
Hmm.
it doesn't seem to work for me. So I draft. Um, for example, on a book review, I will start with questions, and their questions are related to the theme. Have you ever thought about this, that, the other thing? What do you think about this, that, the other thing? And then I do some summarizing, and some evaluation of style. And then I go back and I've got that sort of outline, and I basically rewrite, hone, improve, condense, um, and make it into something that will honor the writer. And and I try to know when I'm done and not think I'm done too early. And I organize based on what I want to start with that day and have a goal of how much I can get through. And some days I make it and some days I don't.
Hmm.
And some days the phone rings a lot. I also run the Goodwin Brown spelling service
Oh, okay.
for my husband who is challenged by vowels.
Hmm.
And I'm happy to do that. But when when he calls, I do pick up and that breaks my concentration, but I get right back into it. And I know from the bottom of my heart that spelling is not writing.
Hmm. Yeah. Hmm.
So I'm happy to do that for him.
It
It's just
almost
how
sounds like,
pardon?
you reminded me of what I tell my students, a little different, because I
Mhm,
try to get my students to speak English and
mhm.
give presentations, but instead they read. And I'm always telling them reading is not speaking. They're just reading a script. And I say,
You are exactly right.
yeah. And it sounds a lot like your advice too. So it's just real
Mhm.
thing.
And spelling is not writing.
Yeah.
And watching the Olympics is not doing the sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of distinctions in life.
Oh, by the way, as the sports judge, do you have a favorite sport to watch? I didn't get to ask that.
The Summer Olympics, I love women's gymnastics.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And in the winter, I love the pairs figure skating.
Hmm.
And I know those two kind of go together.
Yeah.
The more competitive sports are just not my thing. You know, I was behind the door when they passed out coordination.
Yeah,
So,
it happens to the best of us.
yeah.
Um, a last question. Is there anything else you'd like to say to writers of the sports chapter in particular?
Yeah. Tell the story that only you can tell.
Hmm.
There is a piece from the sports chapter that is still in my head. It was not a winner. It was about inclusion much more than it was about sports.
Oh, that one. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. It's on the tip of my
Uh,
tongue.
yeah, I hope it gets published somewhere sometime.
No,
It was a
published in the
wonderful,
anthology.
yeah, it was a wonderful piece, but it didn't quite fit the category.
Hmm.
Uh, but I love that the author wrote from his point of view.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
that's
yeah, tell the story that only you can tell, and then look for the place to publish it. And don't be upset if you get rejected,
hmm.
because your opinion might not be a judge's opinion. And judges are human, they have opinions, they bring their own backgrounds. You picked a non-sports person to judge your sports category, and I loved the chance to do it. But if there was a piece about technical perfection, it might not register with me in the same way that it would with somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the reviewers who picked that story were thinking that that the inclusion aspect of it was good enough to fit into the category. So I'm glad that it's in the book, but I like the choices you picked for the winners. They're
good.
pretty solid. Um,
Yeah, I'm glad to know it is in the book.
yeah, yeah. All of the stories that you saw are all in the book. We were just wanting you to pick winners. Um,
Great.
in fact, before we talked, I was working on lists of all the people in the book. It's quite a process. By the way,
Oh, I imagine it is. You are undertaking a huge thing there.
yeah. Well, luckily, I have a team helping me out, and a lot of
Yeah.
people who are supporting it.
I
Um,
have thought about taking the winners from Writer Advices contests and putting them together in a book. I
great.
don't think I'm ever going to get around to it. I don't think I'm going to. There's so many other priorities on my list,
Mm,
but I just know how much work that would be.
yeah.
So kudos to you for doing that.
Oh, well, it's but I don't have a bunch of projects. I have my own writing and then academic stuff and then the anthology. So it's not a lot. But so why don't you tell people who are curious where they could find you on social media?
Okay, I am out there in many, many places. The simplest thing you can do is go to writeradvice.com, scroll down on the homepage, and send me an email. You can also find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Threads. You can find me on Twitter, Twitter, now known as X, the website formerly known as Twitter. Oh, I have an old page on Pinterest. And if you Google my name, you're going to find places where I have posted a variety of blogs and things of that nature. I'm active with the San Francisco Writers Conference, and I used to do some blogs for them. I'm on the boards of Story Circle Network and the San Francisco chapter of the Women's National Book Association. So I have some stuff with them. So I'm out there, all of which makes me a real writer, even though I have not been traditionally published by one of the big five and don't ever anticipate that I will be, because most agents want to build a career with their writers, and it's a little late for that for me. So,
Well, your books are still worth seeing, regardless of Big Five, Disrupted, Talent, and Never Too Late. As you know, funny to say that because your book, Never Too Late, the title, and you're saying
yeah,
about an
never
agent.
too late. And this is my story of meeting my Mr. Husby. I had never been married.
Mm,
Never too late from wannabe to wife at 62. And I always let him tell the story in conversations. And then I say, if you want to hear my version, read the book.
mm, yeah, I intend to this summer. So
But
thanks for
perfect.
so thank you for your time.
Thank
And
you for having me.
mm,
This is fun.
yeah, it's always a lot of fun hearing what a writer has to say. All right, thank you.
Thank you.